right, open your Bibles, Ephesians chapter 5, Ephesians, 5th chapter. Guys, it's always good to be in church. It really is. I will start here. We're going to go to a lot of Scripture this morning. But we will start here, verse 21, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of the Lord. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. Wives, submit yourselves unto your... Oh, I'm sorry, that's not in there 3 times. I just thought some of you needed to hear it 3 times. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and He is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave Himself for it. Let's bow our heads. Let's talk to the Lord. Father, we thank You now, God, for Your goodness, Your grace, Your great kindness. I think I speak for these people this morning, God, when I say 2 things. Number 1, we have no problem with You this morning because You are good. There's nothing wrong with You. God, we have no problem with Your book, because there's nothing wrong with it. God, the problem is us. Lord, there may be somebody worse than me in here, but I know this, every one of us is desperately wicked. Every one of us needed Jesus Christ as our personal Savior. If there's somebody here who has not yet done that, oh Lord, they need to trust Christ as their Savior. God, for those who have, I pray, Lord, that You would be first in every one of their lives, that they would want to start every day with a desire to live to Your glory. God, this is a special day in our country for fathers, and so, Lord, let the comments about a father help the fathers. God, be the best fathers they can, be the best Christians that they can. In Jesus Christ's name I pray, amen. Now, I always point out in this passage, God never told a man he's the head of the home. He never told a man he's the head of the home. He said, remember right there it says that the man is the head of the home. I know that. I said God never told a man that. Because once a man finds out, everybody finds out. I'm the head of the home. I'm the head of the home. Woman, where's my coffee? I mean, when a man finds out he's the head of the home, the whole world knows about it. I'll never forget, I saw this young guy, he was a Bible college student, and he was engaged, and I can't remember, his fiancée said one word or something. He goes, submit. And I think one word, stitches. And he's hitting the head with a rock, okay? It would probably do more damage to the rock. But the fact is that God tells the woman that the man is the head, because she needs to hear that. She doesn't need to hear that. I had somebody say one time, well, women need to be told that the man is the head of the home because they have a problem with submission, and men don't. How many of you guys were ever in the military? Okay, you guys were in the military. I'll bet you that every time you got an order, you just said, that's the smartest thing I've ever heard. I'll be happy to do that. Yes, sir. You guys don't know. You know what yes, sir means? That is the first 2 words in a very long sentence. Yes, sir. I know how an idiot like you come up with such a stupid suggestion like that. But you know if you say all of that, you're going to the brig, so you just go, yes, sir. Look, guys, men have to submit 2 places. They have to submit on the job. Isn't that true? And if you don't like it, get another job. And you have to submit in the military, and if you don't like it, get out. A woman has to submit every day to the guy that invested their life savings in Enron. And then he's beating his hairy chest about being the head of the home. But men are the head of the home. Regardless of what we may say, that is still the fact. Now, we have a country. I love my country, but get this straight. Our country is now run by overbearing women and effeminate men. Everybody out there, it's either everything that is being done is to please a woman, and worse yet, when a man starts talking like a woman. Yeah, you know, you said something that offended me. Well, go change your skirt. You know, there's a day when you said something that offended a man, and it was like, so what? And now a man has come, you said something that it really offended me. I had a kid come up one time. Now, I'm not sure. Well, yeah, I'm kind of sure of his mental condition. Yeah, I am. You always wonder when somebody walks up to you and they're talking to you but looking through you. When somebody walks up and goes, I'd like to ask you a question, which I thought that was a pretty good question in itself. And what had happened is I was telling about another rare medical condition that I have. It flares up every now and then. It's called glaze withdrawal. When I go into glaze withdrawal, it's really bad. But fortunately, Dunkin' Donut, Krispy Kreme, and Tim Horton have built clinics all over the country so that my glaze withdrawal can be taken care of pretty quick. And this kid, I said something about sugar, and he said, you said something that offended me. And I wasn't surprised. Probably good morning offended him anyway. And I said, well, what was it? He goes, you talked about sugar like it's good to eat. I said, well, I tried smoking it once, pal. That didn't work. I mean, melts down, drips on your chin, burns. Sticks right there, but you can't get it off. And he goes, sugar is just dope. I quit eating sugar, and it cleared up half my mind. Now, how come I think every one of you just had the same thought I had? Like, what does he need to quit for the other half? Because this kid ain't completely across the river, okay? He hasn't made it all the way to normal. And, but when you get people, and we get this thing where they're always effeminate. Listen, let me tell you something. Men are the head of the home. You know what a man does? What dad does? He leads the home. He commits the ultimate direction of the home. Now, I don't say that a man has... I knew a guy that he really did. He thought he had to go with his wife to the grocery store and tell her which can of soup to pick off the shelf. We have a word for that. Idiot! Okay? He's an idiot. Why would you want to do that? I mean, guys, let her alone. Let her go to the grocery... You know how men shop? You know the difference between men and women? A man needs a shirt. He parks there. He could leave the car running. Even in California, he wouldn't burn much gas. He walks into the store, shirt, money, go. I mean, he's done in 5 minutes. You know what a woman does? She goes and finds, in 5 minutes, she finds exactly what she's looking for. And then says, she's at the mall. I'll leave it here. I'll see if I can find it cheaper somewhere else. Then she can't, and through the whole 3 hours of touring the mall, she's hoping it's still there when she gets back. Is that not true? Well, let me tell you something, guys. You know what you have to do? A man has to make the decision for the direction of the home. I can testify. This woman right there is a wonderful, wonderful, godly woman. I have told my wife that when God made Eve, that is what he intended. She has been, ladies, she has been 31 years without a home. In the 31 years we've been on the road, not one time has she complained. Not once. You know what a home means to a lady? I don't mean a mansion. I just mean anything. You know, I tell folks, I said, I don't know if I got a mansion in heaven when I get there, but if you see me, if I get one, you're going to see me walking around the outside looking at it. You say, what are you doing? We're checking for wheels. No wheels, okay? We don't want wheels. And this lady has put up with, when the 5 of us, believe it or not, we really had a bathroom that was about the size of this pulpit. And all 5 of us would be in that bathroom on a Sunday morning. I have no idea how we did it. We're all trying to get all straightened up or whatever. And she has never complained about it. In fact, I just started teaching in Idaho in a Bible college last September. And so now we have officially moved to Idaho. And we have our motorhome is for sale. We're now traveling around a little 24-foot trailer. And we're going to buy a house. And I told her, I said, I'm not looking for a house. I'm not looking at houses. I said, after 31 years of no complaining, you are not going to live in a house that I picked out that you just have to accept. I said, you pick the house. I'm a man. I can sleep in a garage. I've done it enough. Anyway, that's what I miss about a house. A house at least has a garage where I can sleep. But But guys, here's the thing. We went back to our trailer today, and I told Kathy, God has called me to be a missionary to Mars, she'd start packing. She'd think I was nuts, but she'd start packing. You say, why? I lead the family. A man leads the family. Now, if you're a father here and you're a man, don't puff your chest out and say, yeah, woman, you listen to that. Hold it. You better have some wisdom about where you lead them. You know, one of the things about being married so long, some of you guys have been married a long time, you understand this. You know, sometimes you make you're at a major intersection in your life and you know you have to make this big decision. But sometimes you're at like a little Y, like a little intersection of a 2-lane road. And you go, what should I go, left or right? And I've told Kathy, I said, having been married so long, I can look back now that 30 and 35 years ago, we made what at that time seemed like an incidental decision that was so major that if we had made the wrong decision, we couldn't change it now. That's a big responsibility. I'm going to tell you, I don't know if a man can do it. You say, but a man's got to do it. That's why a man's got to be saved and close to God. You have got to be in this book because, guys, you're an idiot. Now, don't take that personal. I'm an idiot, okay? I have no problem with that. I can't lead this home, but I have to lead. I have to decide. I have to say, here's what we're doing. We bought this trailer 2 days before we went on the road. You say, why? Because I decided it. We've had our motorhome up for sale. It has been up for sale for a year. It hasn't sold. We thought by the time summer came, because now that I'm teaching, instead of going, if you think about the spokes of a wheel, and we used to drive from this church to this church to this church to this church, now we have to go back. I have to be back at Boise every Thursday night. So I fly to this meeting and then fly back, fly to this meeting, fly back, fly to this meeting, fly back. We can't use the motorhome. I don't want to let it sit for 9 months. So we thought it would have sold by now and we'd have a trailer. And we didn't, and we're about to go on the road for the summer. We left May 31st. We'll be back the end of July. And the thought of living out of the truck, I think we were both suicidal. Really. I mean, I was about to say something bad about Hillary. If that don't get you killed, nothing will. I mean, no, nothing bad, just something true, which are a lot similar. But and I said, just come with me. And we went to the trailer place. You say, how'd you buy it? The down payment for the house. It's gone. But we got the trailer. You say, that was my decision. I did it for her. I did it for me. And she didn't complain. What I'm saying, guys, is that man has to lead. He has to make a decision. But guys, just having that authority, having that power, don't get drunk on that. You know what you need to realize? If you're the one that does it, you're the one that's going to get the blame for it. Let me ask you a question. If a boat runs aground, do they say, look what the cook did? The cook ran that ship aground. Who did it? The captain. Yeah. Men beat their chest about being the captain, but I got news for you, bucko. If the family goes bankrupt, it isn't her fault. Well, I've seen some cases where it could be, and a credit card. But the fact is that as the head of the home, a man has to lead. A man has the final say. You know, one of the things we say about the Bible is our final authority in all matters of faith and practice, correct? You know what final authority is? That means think of your opinion on any given subject and pitch it. Because it doesn't matter. You know, some of you parents, you're afraid of somebody going to teach your children 4-letter words. I'm still looking for the guy that taught my boys the 3-letter word. Why? I was talking to this little kid one time. His dad was right there. And I said, now, from now on, whenever your dad says anything, just say, why? That's like child abuse. Okay, come on, we have to go. Why? Well, because they're going to start in 10 minutes and we don't want to be late. Why? Well, because we don't want to be the last ones to walk in. Why? Wouldn't you like to find the guy that taught your kid why? But see, I am a father. I've had the classes. I have the certificate. I know what to do. Because I said so! So what is that? That's final authority. You know when Pop speaks, the voting is over. Isn't that right? Guys, there's final say. But here's the problem, guys. Again, with that authority comes great responsibility. Because if you stop all discussion, and if you end it with, I said so, you better have said it right. And if you have got, I've met people who have just trainloads of confidence in themselves. And they must have bought it from a train, because I don't know where they got it, because I don't have any confidence in them. And you've got to realize, guys, that you may have great confidence in your ability to handle any situation. I've been with guys like that. I get as far away from them as I can, because I don't think they can handle anything. That's why you better, every decision you make, you had better seek the face of God. So as the head of the home, he leads the home. He has the final say. He defends the home. Now, you know, when you guys got in the military, you swore to defend the Constitution from enemies both foreign and domestic. Guys, there are enemies outside your family. There are enemies inside your family. It's easy to figure out the guys from outside. They're going to come, they're going to break in, they're going to hurt your kids. I remember one time when I was a kid. Now, we don't do anything with Halloween because Halloween has become so demoniac. But when I was a kid, it was actually a nice kid's day. You went out and got some candy bars, and that was that. And you know, you put on a Western outfit. Now everybody wants to be Dracula. But they want to use real blood. And they want you to give them a pint of it as the gift, you know, the treat. And so we didn't do anything with Halloween. But when I was a kid, we did. And I'll never forget, I told you my dad was a big guy. He was only as tall as me, but he's 285 pounds. Okay? And we had this pumpkin, you know, this jack-o'-lantern out on our porch. And one night, I'm watching my dad. He's watching TV, and some teenage kid came up, grabbed that pumpkin, and smashed it down on our porch. Never in my life did I see 285 pounds move that fast. I mean, it was like a catapult on an aircraft carrier. My dad was out the door. That kid was cooking, and my old man was on him. I mean, 3 houses down. We finally got down there. My dad had this teenage boy down on his back. He had this loaded, locked, and ready to punch right through his head. I mean, I think he'd have killed him. And my dad was speaking very plainly. You wouldn't want to know what he said, okay? But you would understand what he said. And we're all trying to keep my dad from punching him, because I swear I thought he'd kill him. But boy, he said, want to mess with my jack-o'-lantern? You want every kid in the school to come by and mess with your jack-o'-lantern if your old man's there. You've got to defend them. But guys, you defend them from enemies outside the home and inside the home. No, I don't mean that your wife is the enemy, or your brother or their brothers or sisters the enemy. But you know, you guys are all watching outside, and then you let them go to their room on the internet, and what's going on the internet is absolutely destroying them. I mean, the internet is not your friend. Oh, there's some good stuff on it. It just, you know, I'm always amazed at how the bad stuff just shows up. But it shows up. And Pop, you got to put an end to some of that stuff. Your television is not your friend. You know, I don't understand it. I always say this: Americans quit thinking that they have to get their TV sets. I don't know if an American can think. I don't think they can have an idea unless they're holding a remote in their hand. In fact, if this will help you for the rest of the meeting, when you come back tonight, bring your remote. Just hold it in your hand. Maybe something will get through. I will warn you now, mute will not work. But there is stuff within the home. And look, if a guy came up on the porch and said, I want to get your son on drugs, you would run him off. Well, your TV wants to get your son on drugs. If a guy came up on the porch and said, I want to be immoral with your daughter, you would run him off, wouldn't you? But that's what your TV wants. That's what the internet wants. You've got to understand, guys, that there is at some point, you've got to recognize that that thing is never your friend. It is never your friend, and you've got to defend your family. Now, take a look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. Let me tell you that a man is a father. He's not just the head of the home, but he is a father. 1 Thessalonians Look at verse 11. As you know how we exhorted and comforted and charged every one of you as a father doth his children. Then a father exhorts. You say, what's that? You kids, don't say men here, okay? Don't say men, because your parents may hear. But did you ever think, I wish my old man had quit preaching to me? He's supposed to. That's what I'm doing right now. This is exhortation. You know what exhortation is? That's where you just sit there and somebody gets behind this pulpit, opens up this book, and rips your face off. You need that. Well, I got one time said, well, when I was a kid, people told me no. Nobody tells me no anymore. I said, really? I said, you stop at stop signs? You stop at red lights? Somebody told you no. And if you don't obey, you might catch a freight truck in the side of your door. Isn't that true? So guys, we exhort our children, but we comfort our children. Remember, if you were here for Sunday school, I said that the kids, even boys, when they get to the age where they don't want to sit on your lap anymore, but after they get to that age where they don't want to sit on your lap anymore, there's still one time when they want to. Know what it is? They get hurt. I mean, the kid is 9 years old, 10 years old. He don't want to sit on his old man's lap anymore. And then he goes out and something happens, man. He falls down off of his bike or does a face plant on his skates. You know something? He's willing to sit on. He's willing to backslide into childhood again. And you have to comfort him. But it also says you charge them. You know what a charge is? That's where you give them direction. Everybody has a charge. Everybody is told, you are to do this. A father charges his children. Look at Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12. Look at verse 7. If ye endure chastising, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? And if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? You know what you do? A father chastises his children. Now, I preach in third world countries. I preach in heathen countries. I preach in places where I don't have any running water and electric during the week and things like that. You know what? Let me tell you, there's one thing that all heathen nations have in common. You know what it is? They never discipline their children. From dawn till night, till dusk, those kids run free at this age. The kids aren't clean. The kids don't know anything. The kids do things that hurt themselves, and dad doesn't care. That is a heathen trait. Not chastising your children is heathen. You know, this nation was raised spanking their children. That is biblical, guys. That is actually civilized. We have now gotten to the point in this country where not just the heathen, but in our churches, you've got parents that think you're going to, well, if I spank them, I'll warp them. You won't warp them. They don't warp. God made a place. And you can spank them. And you need to spank them. Here's how I explained it to my sons. Son, you don't want to lose all your baby teeth on the same day. But no, that's not what happened. You know what I recommend? I don't recommend a paddle. Nothing dumber than like this dad. He gets this like 2x6. He drills holes in it, paints flames on it. Going to apply the Board of Education to the seat of knowledge. You have to understand this. You spank your children in public today, you're going to end up in court. And the judge is going to say this, where's the weapon? And when they bring it in on a wheeled dolly, you're in trouble. I tell people, I said, get a 36-inch dowel, cut it in half, that's 18 inches. Take the ends and sand them. You say, why would you do that? Because you have to figure you're going to end up in court, and they're saying you're not taking your child's safety in mind. If I sand them so that there's no splinters, they know I have thought about my child's safety. Really, that's true. I said, then when you put them over your knee, put your hand over their kidneys. Now, that little stick is not going to hurt their kidneys. But that's okay, because that's what they'll say. You take this 2x4, and if you go up a little high, well, you're going to damage your child's kidneys. Not if I got my hand over it. So when I'm spanking, if I go too high, I get me. I am reminded. I said that in a church, and about 3 weeks later, maybe a month, I got a letter from a family, and here's what had happened. Of course, there had been a divorce, and now the husband, he was in church, and he had a godly wife, and they were raising kids from his first marriage, and he spanked them, and the lost woman that he was married to before turned him into the court for child abuse. They put him in court. She said they used a paddle, a big 2x4, 1x4, 10x10, I don't know, baseball bat, but she said they started using a dowel rod. She said the judge said exactly what you said. He said, "Where's the weapon?" And they brought in this dowel rod that weighed about 2 ounces, sanded edges, and they said he held this thing like this. He said, "This is the weapon," and dismissed the case. But the Bible says a rod. It doesn't say a club. I've seen where clubs will help, but the Bible says a rod. But I will tell you something, Pop. Because we lived on the road all this time, we homeschooled. And I said it this way: Kathy was the teacher, I was the principal. She taught them, I made them want to learn. I was the motivational therapist. That's just what it was. My boys, for the longest time, they thought time out was how long they were unconscious. I was in this church one time, and this kid was acting up, and his mom went, "You need a time out?" The kid went, "No, no." I thought. And she looked over me, she said, "We call a spanking a timeout." Oh, wisdom. Wisdom. Yeah. Do you want a timeout? Look how wonderful. We'll give you a timeout. Oh, wait a second. Look at Psalm 103. Look at Psalm 103. And look at verse 13. Like as the Father pitieth his children, so the Lord pitieth them that fear him. Am I the only one that pities my grandchildren? No, I don't know. I don't think you need to pity your grandchildren. But some of you guys my age, you know that your kids are not growing up in the country you grew up in. Isn't that right? I feel sorry. I feel sorry for these young guys. There's a country out there that I tell people, I said, I am a foreigner to this nation. And you ought to feel sorry for your kids. Now, guys, you got the Lord. You're in church. I think kids that are in Christian school and homeschool have the potential to be the best educated children in our country. I didn't say the most intelligent. You don't educate intelligence into somebody. You don't educate them to be smarter. But you can educate them to the absolute limit of what they're able to get. And public school today is nothing but sociology and psycho stuff, and they want to turn them into perverts and environmentalists. And if you just teach them, what is it? The 3 R's. If you just teach them reading, writing, arithmetic, you teach them the academic standards and fundamentals, they will be smarter than the standard public school kids. They'll be better educated. Our oldest son went in the Marine Corps, and he did his ASVAB test and beat his recruiter. He said, "This is the highest score I've ever seen on this test. Anything you want to be, you can be." I said, "John, tell me you want to be a general." Let's just cut the chase, buddy. Let's get up there front and get them 4 stars. But you know what's funny? He filled out this form for the Marine Corps. And the guy brings his form back, and he says, "Now, before I turn this in," he says, "I just want you to check it over again to make sure, that everything is, you didn't miss anything, answers." And so John checks it over, hands it back. He didn't change anything. Hey, well, you just want to double check everything in case you might have misanswered something, and then it comes back to bite you later. And John looks at Artie. Nope, so really, you got to make sure that every question is answered accurately and honestly. And John says, "It is." And after the 3rd time, the guy goes, "You've never done drugs?" Because that's what it said. Have you ever done drugs? My kid said no. He goes, you've never done drugs? He goes, no. He couldn't believe it. He said, are there more like you where you came from? The Marine recruiters started. Now we homeschooled them, but they were in a school, enrolled in a school in Cincinnati, in a Christian school. So he graduated. They graduated through there, and the Marine recruiter started staking out the school and visiting all the seniors because he wanted good people. Guys, you got to pity them. They're going into a world that doesn't have any values. It's sad. But a father sometimes needs to pity him. You ever, come on, Dad, the kid does this and he gets spanked. And if he does this and he gets spanked. And if he does this and he gets spanked. And after about 3 or 4 times that day, he does something, you just go, I think I'll just pass on that one. I mean, it just seems like I'm wearing him out. Just have some pity. Look at Proverbs chapter 4. Verse 1, hear ye children the instruction of a father, and attend to no understanding. Then a father instructs his children. My wife is a good lady, and she has well taught our sons. She really has. And she has loved them as a mother should. I have loved them as a father should. And there have been times when I have instructed them. I've sat down, I've told them, under this situation, you do this. This is what you do. I've instructed them on how to save money. When my boys graduated, I gave them all a $20 bill, registered the serial number, and I said, I expect you to have this 10 years from now if I ask you for it. Say, why'd you do that? Because I wanted them to teach them that every time they got money, it's not supposed to go in one hand and out the other. I want to teach those boys how to save some money. We've got a nation that does not save money. It comes in one hand and it's spent by that evening. You say, what happened? Somebody didn't instruct the kid. I've always told my boys, give your employer at least 15 minutes of free time. Which, what are you saying? I'm saying work 15 minutes off the clock. You say, why would you do that? Because that way, when you pillow your head that night, I don't care whether you worked hard or not. You know you gave them more than you got paid for. A father needs to instruct his sons. Dad, you got to have some standards of your own. Look, there's not a guy here, there's not a lady, there's not a person here with a job that doesn't know how to cut a corner. There isn't a person here that doesn't know how to take a 6-hour job and make it 8 hours. If your boss drops you at a site and says, when you're done, you can go home and you look at this and think, man, this is only a 5-hour job. But I'm going to lose 3 hours. And that 5-hour job will take you 8 hours. You know what you ought to do? Do it in 5. You say, I'll lose 3 hours. That's okay. Your boss will know you're honest, and you'll know you're honest. And guys, you're going to know you're honest. And so a father instructs his son. Now, take a look at 2 things. Get Proverbs 13 in one hand and Proverbs 15 in another. We can instruct our children, but we can't change the way they take it. And Proverbs 13 verse 1 says, a wise son heareth his father's instruction, but a scorner heareth not rebuke. So a wise son will obey the father's instruction. Look at chapter 15 verse 3. Verse 2, the tongue of the wise useth knowledge aright, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness. Guys, there is a wise son and there is a foolish son. Now, how do you know a foolish son? A foolish son, take Proverbs chapter 20. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 20. Whoso curseth his father or his mother, his lamp shall be put out in obscure darkness. Don't ever curse your father. You know, I told you guys in Sunday school that my dad didn't love me. I told you that because he didn't love me. Here's how this worked. My parents had a daughter. 4 years later, they had a son. They had a daughter and a son. They wanted more kids. Then they had me. I was born 2 years after my parents' last children. You say, what is that? In 1950, that was called a surprise. Today, that would be called an abortion. Now, come on, don't you think surprise is a better word? You never stepped into a darkened room, all of a sudden the lights came on, there were party balloons and decorations, people jumped out with pointed colored hats and noisemakers and yelled, "Abortion!" No, they yelled what? Surprise. Surprise is a better word, isn't it? But consequently, they didn't want me. Our background is Romanian on both sides, and in the Romanian culture, if a family is too poor to afford a child, and my family was not, they were middle class, or if they don't want that child for some reason, they adopt it out of the family. Now, they don't adopt it like we do in this country, from California all the way to New York, and you're 25 years later trying to track them down. They adopt it to somebody they know, and that child grows up knowing his dad, mom, brother, and sisters. In the Romanian culture there in Ohio, when I was a kid, the Romanian family had about 8 kids. They had another one, could not afford it. They adopted that child out to another Romanian couple, and that boy grew up every birthday. His dad, his mom, his brothers and sisters were at his birthday. He grew up knowing his family, knowing his parents, but he was raised in another home. My parents almost adopted me out to my rich uncle. My rich uncle. But they kept me. But there was no great love. I'm not critical of my father. I want you to know something. I have nothing negative to say about my father. And if you say something, I'll punch you. Now, it won't hurt. Not at this age. But I'll still hit you. My dad, I told you, worked at the steel mill. And honest, my dad, I have no close memories of my father. We never did anything together. We never fished. We never did anything. He didn't want to do anything with me. And but one time he wanted to show me Republic Steel. That's where he worked. And my dad was hard of hearing. And so if he spoke at the back of the bus, they heard it in the front of the bus. And I remember we're riding around this bus, and my dad's talking, and I'm going, "Dad, I can hear you, not quite so loud." And there's these 2 young guys over here, and they kept looking back over their shoulder because he was so loud, because they got somebody doing the tour, and then my old man's giving them the second tour. And finally, this one guy turns around, looks at my dad, he goes, "Can't you be a little quiet?" And I said, "Leave him alone, he's my dad." You say, "Were you saved?" Mm-hmm. So would you have fought that guy? I'd have fought them both. You say, "Why?" Because he's my dad. I don't have a negative thing to say about my dad. My dad was a good man. When our son was in the Marine Corps, he got shipped over to Naha military base in Okinawa. I said, "Son, you're in Naha?" He said, "Yeah." I said, my dad built that in World War II when he was in the Air Force. I said, "You're not the first Gipp that's ever been there. Your grandfather helped build it." Guys, what I'm telling you, don't curse your parents. Don't take this flippant attitude of my stupid dad, my stupid mom. You curse your father and mother, it says 20, the lamp will be put out in obscure darkness. Maybe we've got a bunch of young people that are living like they can't find their feet. If they started at their knees and used both hands, they can't find their way out their obscure darkness because they're cursing their father and mother. You better watch yourself. Look at Proverbs 19, verse 26. He that wasteth his father and chaseth away his mother is the son that causeth shame and bringeth reproach. How do you waste your father? You know what it is? What if you built something, built a shed, built a garage, and the night you finished it, it burned down? Isn't all that effort a waste? You know what your parents do? They work, and then you know what the kids come home? They come home and move in. Hey, you know why we live in a trailer? Because our kids can't live in the basement and upstairs. Well, they can have the upstairs, okay? But they better duck when we go into the bridges. Our kids are not coming back to our house. When we get a house, they will not come and live in our basement. They will not move back into our house. And I knew a good man, Christian man, hardworking guy, and his son was having some problems, and he let him move in with him, and that boy robbed his dad blind. Stole his dad's coin collection, stole some other things from him. You say, what is that? That's wasting his father. Don't waste him. Don't steal from your parents. Don't you take something that doesn't belong to you. You think, you know why you steal from your parents? Because you know they won't put you in jail. He had people say, your son would go to prison for that. What father's going to put his kid in prison? But don't waste your parents. Look at chapter 23. Verse 7, for he that thinketh in his heart, so is he eat and drink, saith he to thee, but his heart is not with thee. That is not the verse I wanted. I had one here that said that he shameth his father and mother. You know what? No dad. You know dads, kids are always saying this about their dad. That's my dad. He can whip anybody. I thought my dad could. My dad, I told you, my dad had a head like a pumpkin. He had hands like catcher's mitts. And in the Romanian language, mână is the word for hand. And so we'd be downtown, and you know where my dad crossed the street? Anywhere he wanted to. He didn't wait. He didn't go down the light and wait for the little guy going, beep, 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 beep. He just, light down there, light down there. Here's what he'd do. He'd drop this big ham, and he'd go, the mână, which means the hand. And so I put my hand up in his hand. It was kind of like this. I would put my hand in this catcher's mitt. He would wrap his hand around my, like, up to the elbow. And when he grabbed my hand, my feet came off the ground. He stepped off that curb, and I knew that cars, trucks, and light planes would bounce off of him. Nothing would hurt when my dad had my hand in his hand, I never had a thing to worry about. My father worked hard. My father was honest. His son was a drunk. His son was a car thief. I remember the most biting thing my dad ever said. I don't know how many times my dad bailed me out of jail. But I remember one night, he just bailed me out of jail. And he said this, he said, I'm trying to make the name Gipp good in this town. And he said, you're doing nothing but bringing it down. Now, he said that somewhat louder with some adjectives added. You know what I did? I shamed my father. That man worked hard. My dad, guys, when my dad needed tires, he went to the only tire dealer in town. It wasn't a nationwide chain. He said, I need 4 tires. I don't have the money. Put them on my car, and I'll give you something every week until they're paid for. There was no, your state. I can't get over it. They want to conserve paper. They don't want to cut down trees to make paper. If you buy a paper clip, you get a white form, blue form, yellow form, pink form, and it's from here to the floor. I think California is clearing every tree out of this country just to make all the forms. It was not, well, John, after a credit check, we'll give you that. Well, John, do you have a credit card? My dad never had a credit card. Know what he had? He had his word. My dad would give the guy $20, and every week he'd come down there and pay it off until it was done. He was making the name Gipp good in that town, and I was shaming it. Oh, guys, don't shame your dad's last name. You don't know anything. Before I walked in this and told you a little bit about my dad, the only thing you knew for sure about my dad is his last name was Gipp. Every time I say my name, I am testifying about my father. You know, I was in Korea recently, just a week ago, and I preached, and I don't know how many times, over the years, decades, you come to church and the name is in a marquee or it's advertised someplace, and it doesn't mean a thing to me. I don't ever go, oh, look at my name. But you know what I think? I hope my old man knows about this up in heaven. I want him to know I'm doing everything I can. My understandable history, it used to be called An Understandable History of the Bible. And with the second edition, I changed it to Gipp's Understandable History of the Bible. You say, oh, you wanted your name on it? No, that's my dad's name. I put that on there for my old man. I don't want to shame his name anymore. And so a father has those things. Now, I said this earlier. The best father is a saved father. If you are not saved, you have flaws. You won't get rid of those flaws when you get saved, but you'll learn to overcome those flaws. And you will be if you're a good father, I am telling you, if you are a picture perfect father, you get saved, you will find out that you can go into afterburner. And you'll be even a better father than you are now, because you will be a better man. You need to have this Bible in you, guys. Being saved doesn't automatically make you a great person. It is putting this Bible in and putting this Bible in and putting this Bible in. You get this Bible in you one of 2 ways. You get preached to, you read it on your own. You come to church, you get preached to. You come on midweek service, you get preached to. But you have got to feed yourself every day. Tell me if this isn't basically true. Everybody has a noon meal. Isn't the Sunday noon meal usually kind of a big meal? Monday's noon meal is usually not the big meal that Sunday's noon meal is. Do you know what Sunday's noon meal is spiritually? You come here, he gets up behind his pulpit, and he feeds you something from this book. Monday's noon meal for you, you're at work, and it might be a bologna sandwich. It does not compare to the roast turkey or chicken or the ham that your wife made the day before at Sunday. This thing is just a sandwich that you made for yourself, but it keeps you alive, doesn't it? And your personal Bible reading may not be the elaborate meal that your pastor delivers from this table, but it'll keep you alive till Wednesday. I know this is probably an awful thing. I pastored for 5 years. I got on a good behavior, by the way. But I pastored for 5 years. I never wanted to preach a life-changing message. I never wanted to preach a message that would last a lifetime. I wanted Sunday night's message to wear out about Tuesday. How about Wednesday afternoon? You know what my people were saying? I need to go back to church tonight and get something. I was hoping that Wednesday would get them through to about Saturday night and just say, you know, I need to get back to church tomorrow morning. Men, I told you this morning, do not send your children to church. Take them to church. I'll tell you one thing my boys will tell you. They have seen me reading this book and reading this book and reading this book. They should see their father reading this book. You get in this book until this book gets into you, and you can be the best father that you can be. You're not going to buy a book on fatherhood. This is the book on fatherhood. Okay? You're not going to buy a book on a successful marriage. This is the book for it. But it cannot help you, and it's not going to be some magic verse that you grab and you just repeat it over and over and everything's okay. You have got to be in this book until this book is in you. And maybe some of you guys, maybe you got to complain about your dad. I'll tell you what I learned about my dad. I took the good. My dad was a hard worker. I took that and I became a good worker. My dad never said he loved me. So I could raise my boys and never tell them and say, well, my dad never said he loved me, so I never told them I loved them. But there I took his bad example and said, my boys will never be able to say that. And I tell them I love them all the time. So look, young people, your parents aren't perfect. But you won't be perfect parents. And if you see something good about your father and your mother, put it to mind. Put it to heart. Put it in your life. If you see some place where you say, my dad's a failure there, well, don't use that as an excuse to go rob a liquor store. Just say, when I'm a father, I'll just learn not to do what he did. I'll change that. There's no excuse. Look, you're going to do what you want, and you can blame your parents or you can credit your parents. I credit my parents for every good thing I've got. And if there was something that I thought that they were weak on, I credit them because I saw how not to do it. But you've got to be close to God. I want you to stand with your heads bowed. Your heads bowed, your eyes closed. I got to ask, nobody looking around, is there anybody here? And it may not be a father, it might be a child, it might be a wife, daughter, whatever. But is there anybody here that you'd say this by an uplifted hand? I am not saved. I don't know for a fact if I died right now I'd go to heaven. Here is my hand to acknowledge that. Would you lift your hand up? I don't know for a fact that I'm saved. God bless you. Anybody else? Now I've got good news. You who raised your hand, you know if you need to buy groceries, you go to a grocery store and you can get what you need. If you injure yourself, you go to a hospital and you can get what you need. You are in the place that God put on this earth where you can get what you need spiritually. In just a few minutes, I'm going to have a word of prayer. After I get done praying, then the piano will begin. You who raised your hand, here's what you do. Step out, come down here. Don't be embarrassed. Come down here, and someone will take a Bible. They'll answer every question you have, and before you leave this room, not only will you know that you're saved, but everything you've ever done that you're ashamed of, that you've sinned, that has been terrible, will not only be forgiven, it will be forgotten by God. And you'll have a brand new birthday, and you'll start today like a newborn baby with a few years of good sense on knowing what to do and what not to do. Now, How many fathers would be honest enough to say this? I'm a dad, and I want to be a good father, and I think maybe I'm not being as good a father as I can be, but I want to be the best father I can. Here is my hand to acknowledge that. Just lift them up. All right, you put them down. What you need is in this Bible. It's not going to be found any place. It's not some magic potion. It's not what some psychologist tells you. It's not what some expert that wrote a book on it. God is the expert. He wrote a book on it. Read His book. If you're not a father and you're not unsaved, you're just a Christian, there's still some areas of your life you've got some battles. Maybe you still see your need to surrender your life to Christ. You've got something, you've been seeking success in the wrong way, in the wrong arena, in the wrong area. Maybe this morning you need to say, Lord, this could be ladies too. Lord, here's what I've been trying to achieve. Here's what I've been trying to accomplish. And it's the wrong goal. And I want to have the right goal. I want to have the right motive. I want to do this right. Just a moment, I'll have a word of prayer. You who raised your hand about not being saved, you step up here, and I'm telling you, you can be saved today. The rest of you, whatever you have to do with God, do business with God. Now look, you all have cell phones. And I know when you answer it. You answer it when it rings. If God is calling your number right now, I got news for you. When this invitation starts, you better answer the phone because He does not leave voicemail. So answer the call. Father, thank you for your goodness. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your very great kindness. God, I ask you to be with these people. You saw the hand go up about salvation. Oh, Lord, it's not a shame to come to church unsaved. But what a shame to leave that way. How sad to leave that way. They don't have to. Be like going to a restaurant and leaving hungry. Like going to a hospital and leaving sick. Nobody has to leave here unsaved. So, God, I pray that somebody will come to Christ today. They'll realize the death, burial, and resurrection, the payment that Jesus made because He loved them so much. God, for the Christians who just need to do something for you, I encourage them, God, that they act on what you spoke to them about. Not what I spoke, but what you did. And for these fathers, God, a little bit this world has charmed some. A little bit they've been maybe going for some wrong goals. Or a little bit they've just not known what to do because they're not in their Bible enough to get the good input. I pray for these fathers, God, that they will be the best father they can be. And you are the one, and your book is the source that can make them that father. So I pray, God, that they'll be successful. And could I pray for the young people? I see these young men, these young guys on this front row, and throughout the congregation, God, children. Lord God, if they see something in their parents they think is not good, help them not to use it as their excuse to do wrong, but help them to guide them as to what they should do. And help them now, Father, before they have children, to get some things laid down, foundational, so they can be better prepared than maybe their parents were. So bless God. Please bless these people. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen. With your heads bowed and your eyes closed, as piano plays, if you need